flight theory and aerodynamics. You know, in some of my previous videos, I talked about standard day in aviation, standard day. And you might be wondering, well, what is the difference between a day, and a standard day? Well, a day is our regular day. Okay, but the standard day in aviation has something to do with the standard atmosphere. Because believe it or not, there is a standard atmosphere that is the same for civil aviation around the world. Is the same, and the reason why is for the safety of the flying sky, because aircraft fly all over the world, and then different parts of the world have different atmospheric conditions that the aircraft fly under. So how do you compare the atmospheric conditions in America and the atmospheric conditions in Europe? How do you compare that? How do you compare those two? Well, the way you do it is by referring to the ICAO atmosphere table. Yes, there is an organization by the name of ICAO, International Civil Aviation Organization, that developed a standard atmosphere in which pilots all over the world, pilots around the world can fly using the same set of atmospheric conditions, the same set of regulations, the same set of regularities, and all that in the name of international aviation safety. So the ICAO was created in 1944 by the Chicago Convention to promote safety, aviation safety, and also the development of civil aviation around the world. Okay, so the ICAO's headquarters is in Montreal, Canada, and the United States plays a very important role in its operation. financially, technically, and so on. So to be able to compare aircraft performance um, at the different parts of the world under different atmospheric conditions, ICAO developed a standard atmosphere, and then the standard atmosphere that is related to a standard set of conditions. So what they did, they include all those conditions on a table, on the standard table, on the standard atmosphere table. So as a pilot, if you're flying anywhere in the world, and you want to know, for example, your static pressure at a certain altitude, whether you're in America or in Europe, wherever you may find yourself, it's going to be the same procedure. You're going to use the same procedure. You're going to use the same atmosphere table developed by ICAO. In this table has multiple columns, and those columns contain multiple altitudes, multiple density values, multiple density ratios, temperature ratios, viscosities, then the speed of sound, stuff like that. So that's the table, that's the standard atmosphere table that all pilots around the world rely on in order to be on the same page for the safety of flying, for the safety of international civil aviation. So there are two altitudes that are very important to pilots. Pressure, altitude, and density altitude. The pressure altitude is a certain altitude that corresponds, that is related, that corresponds to a certain static pressure. Okay, pressure altitude is an altitude that corresponds to a certain static pressure on a standard day, because now we are dealing with the standard atmosphere, not our regular atmosphere. So Let's say, for example, an aircraft is flying, and the pilot wants to know his or her pressure, altitude, wherever, whatever location it is at in the air. So what he or she does, she he or she takes the ambient pressure that is read from the flight compartment and divided by the standard day static the, the, the sea level standard day static pressure to get a pressure ratio 1,435 pound. Well, let's say pound per square feet. Let's say 14,035, 1,435 PSF. Now, we know that at sea level, on the standard day, the static pressure is 2,116 PSF. So now, he or she divide 1,435 PSF by 2,116 PSF and gets the pressure ratio, okay, which is expressed in well, by the Greek symbol delta. So now, okay, let me do the calculation. Let me do the calculation here. Okay, I said 1,000. Okay, 1,435 PSF divided by 2,116 PSF at sea level on the standard day. So the ratio, the pressure ratio is 0.678. Well, let's say 0.68 PSF. That's the pressure ratio that I get at that altitude. So okay, 0.678, so I'm going to say 0.68 PSF. Okay, so now once the pilot has that, the pressure ratio, what he or she does, he or she looks at the atmosphere table and then find 0.68 or something close, and then go across that line, okay, that line, and look for the altitude. I think look for the altitude, and then he or she's gonna see the altitude that is related to the pressure ratio. So that will be the pressure altitude at whatever altitude that corresponds to the pressure ratio. Let's say 10,000 feet. Okay, so the altitude at the pressure altitude in this case, the pressure, if there is 10,000 feet on that row corresponding to the pressure ratio, so 10,000 feet will be the pressure altitude. Okay, so but they use all over the world, around the world, they use the same standard atmosphere table. And on that table, the first line, for altitude, density, viscosity, and speed of sound, the first line contains the sea level standard day values. Okay, so now the density altitude is determined in the same way. Okay, you calculate the density ratio. Okay, you're gonna divide the density of the air where, well, if you're flying, you're going to see in your instrument the density of the air where you're at, and then you're going to divide that value by the sea level standard day density, and you get your density ratio, and then you go and you look at the standard atmosphere table. You find the density ratio, and you go, and then you look across you look across across the row, and you find the altitude that corresponds to the density ratio, and that's your density altitude. So basically the density altitude is found by correcting pressure altitude for non-standard temperatures. So I'm not going to I cannot go very deeply in the history of ICAO. That would make the video too long. So what you can do, you just can maybe go online, check it out, but like I told you, the ICAO has a mission. ICAO has a mission, and it's promote safety, aviation safety, civil aviation development around the world, and protection of the environment, many things that they do, and then also supported by the United States and in their 193 member states. It's um, um, I encourage you to go ahead and take a look at the history of the civil aviation, international civil aviation organization, ICAO. The U.S. is very supportive of that organization, and as a matter of fact, the United States contributes about 20% 20% financially to the organization, and safety, aviation safety, aviation security, aviation efficiency, aviation regularities, ICAO regulations.